That's right. I'm back with season 3, episode 27 of the podcast, Blast of Strangeness. So, you read the title, you're correct. Meta horror breaks the fourth wall, 90s films. So, obviously, we're going to get right into the video now. So, as you know, I've covered this in episode 26 and in episode 25, how 90s meta horror breaks the fourth wall. So there was a movie in the mid 90s that the meta horror actually did break the fourth wall. And the film I'm referring to is Wes Craven's New Nightmare from 1994. And it looks like in that movie, being meta horror at the time, especially in the 90s, that movie actually broke the fourth wall in cinema horror for meta horror. So I know you're probably thinking, it broke the fourth wall in meta horror? Yes, it did. Because that movie was meta horror. But I know you're thinking, you're sure it was meta horror? Yes, it was meta horror, actually. It does actually break the fourth wall. Because that's what meta horror in the 1990s did. That's how they broke the fourth wall. And it's just very interesting how it did that. Oh, that's good. So, I know things look a little different. Well, my podcast studio space was revamped, as you can tell. I just wanted to say that quickly. And there are some significant changes. Also, welcome to the podcast if you're new. Also, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell button. That way, so you'll be notified every time there's a new video. Also, welcome back if you've been subscribed for a while. And welcome to the podcast. So, I know that's hard to believe that Wes Craven's New Nightmare actually broke the fourth wall for a meta horror film in its time in 1994. That's what I was shocked. I'll get into this later. It also did it again 2 years later in Scream in 1996. So fourth wall meta horror was broken again. But you see, though, in the 90s, that's what horror movies did. They mostly broke the fourth wall from any other slasher films. But New Nightmare actually takes the cake, along with Scream, for breaking the fourth wall in meta horror in the 90s. I know, it's still so true. Oh. There's also more episodes where I cover more about this. Also available for my podcast. All other episodes are available to watch them right here on YouTube, by the way. So, I also know what you're probably thinking. Love the lighting in the background. Yeah, me too. I know, it's amazing, right? So, I mean, you could say, are you sure it was meta horror? Well, yes, actually, it was meta horror for a horror film at its time. Meta horror was amazing in the 90s. But then again, in the 90s for meta horror, that's what they did. They broke the fourth wall. Now, I liked in that movie where one of the opening scenes of Heather's dream sequence to where she's dreaming that she's on a movie set, and at one point the director actually yells cut, something about the effects, because obviously meta horror things start to go terribly wrong in this movie. And I'm telling you, that movie was amazing, by the way. But now, compared to the entire Nightmare on Elm Street series, every film that was ever made. Now, my favorite actually was New Nightmare out of all of them for a few reasons. One, I liked how it wasn't stuck in the 1980s like the other films. And I mean, I like how it was more 90s pop culture compared to Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, which that was also amazing too, by the way. But, well, yeah, I mean, like I said, out of all of them, my favorite actually was, well, I have 3 favorites out of all of them. The original A Nightmare on Elm Street 1984 was amazing. And then Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare in 1991. That one I liked because it was a little different. And I also liked New Nightmare because it was way different compared to the other films. So that's what I liked about it. I mean, I'm not saying that the other films weren't good. They were. But it's just, I really think that New Nightmare was the one that actually broke the fourth wall of meta horror. Usually slasher films, they don't break the fourth wall. This one in particular did. Just that alone. And from what I hear, that movie made lots of money too. Oh, another thing. A lot of you may not know this, but according to, yes, Paramount Pictures, it's in the works. I don't know about the release date yet, but I guess there's a brand new A Nightmare on Elm Street movie that's going to be available for Paramount for the streaming service to watch on there at some point. It's not going to be available right away, though. But last I knew, that was in the works from what I found out. That's just completely interesting. I wasn't sure if a lot of people on here didn't know about that. I know I might have mentioned it before, but I'm just going to mention it again briefly. And now this live podcast that's being recorded in real time is a one-man show and is not sponsored. Everything you see in this video is not sponsored. I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, should things in this video be sponsored? Yes. Especially with the brands of certain items. Well, no, that's not. A lot of you may not know this, but I know I probably don't sound like me right now, but we'll get into that. Well, the other day, around lunchtime, so I ate something that didn't agree with me, which I've never had a problem with before, but something I ate did not agree with me. It threw me through the ringer, where I ended up throwing up multiple times and was just very sick. And also, from throwing up like that the way I did, my throat was quite sore. And now I'm still hacking my brains out from all that, obviously. But that's besides the point. But the next day I felt so much better. But yeah, there's a lot to more. Yeah. Well, anyway. So if you like meta horror, this podcast episode is for you. I hate to say this, but a lot of you are probably going to hate me for saying this, but let's just face it. Let's face it. You know, other horror films these days, whether it's 90s or not 90s, just cannot match that to break the fourth wall in meta horror. Now, today's meta horror, well, unfortunately, today's meta horror does not break the fourth wall like in the 1990s, like New Nightmare did. Hard to believe that the cast and crew were actually going through real things. Like, real stuff was happening on set where they had to play different versions of themselves, and how some of the cast and crew were actually getting real phone calls similar to the movies. And also, a lot of you may not know this, but Wes Craven's New Nightmare from 1994 is also based on a real earthquake in the California area, that a similar earthquakes in California that had took place at the time back in the 90s, around 94 actually. But the earthquake that the movies are based on, that movie is based on, is the Northridge earthquake that happened in California back in 1994 in certain areas. I just didn't know if a lot of people on here knew about that or not. Also, Wes Craven's New Nightmare also almost didn't get made, only because there were things that had happened that occurred, and with the earthquake being right around the same time as the movie's release, I almost didn't get made, but the production at one point finally did wrap, and that was it. Instead of having to film reshoots, which would have been even longer. That movie was amazing, though. Especially when the one scene in particular where there's a knock at Heather's door. It's actually the police to tell her. It's actually the police to tell her about her husband. So that scene's amazing because I like how they must have had her on some type of thing where she just starts rolling across the room to the door. That was pretty cool. However that happened. Oh. Oh. Now there was a bunch of other cool scenes too in that movie, to where the one scene where I really wanted to talk about this, I'm going to. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Okay. So anyway, the one scene I wanted to talk about in particular is to where at one point when Dylan disappears from the hospital, while he's being lifted up in the air right over traffic, this scene they actually used a crane to lift the child actor up into midair, which a lot of you may not know that. Fun fact about the movie. Yes, the movie was released on VHS and was also sometime in the 2000s was released on DVD, and then eventually was released again for Blu-ray. But it was hell of a movie, though. Wes Craven's New Nightmare in 1994. Best film I had ever seen at the time. I mind you, here I was a child at the time when I had seen that movie the very first time. And I just found it interesting that horror film actually broke the fourth wall for meta horror. Oh, also, I want to interrupt briefly for a second. Also, be sure to email the podcast, and we'll see how we can either get you on the podcast, and we'll set something up and go from there. You can also email the podcast if you have any questions or comments or something you'd like for me to talk about on the podcast. That could be done. No questions asked. Just email the podcast and I'll read the email right here on this live podcast. Oh, also, another thing I'm going to mention on this podcast. Now, being a content creator myself, I do watch other podcasts, shows on YouTube as well. Now, my very favorite podcast that I watch is a podcast called Trailer Tales. I love watching that podcast. I watch it faithfully every week. I've been watching Trailer Tales podcast since it started. And I love that podcast. They're on there faithfully every week. It's Tammy, Crystal, and Dave are on the Trailer Tales podcast. It's a weekly, real, live, everyday podcast that they do once a week. And it is real. I just wanted to put that out there. So, there was something else I was going to mention too. So, now, last week's episode, I know, was only 30-some minutes. And I know my episodes are usually a little longer than that. I know. That's on me. It's only because I had to go take care of something right after. There was no time to wait. So now, what I'm trying to figure out this one scene in Wes Craven's New Nightmare is the substance that when Heather goes to see Chase's body in the morgue with the morgue attendant, the substance that she suddenly pukes up, or the substance that appears out of her mouth in this movie, I am trying to figure out what that substance was supposed to be. I do have a pretty good guess of what it could be, possibly. But I personally don't really know for sure if that's what it was. I'm just trying to figure that out. That was another good scene in that movie too, if you ask me. Yes, I also got my French vanilla iced coffee. That's also not sponsored, by the way. But like I said, I'm just trying to figure out in this movie, like, what was that substance that it looked something she suddenly like throws up. And I also liked how in this movie, how it was so much different from the others, where this time there was a child involved, like a little one. Because usually in the movies, it usually follows around teenagers and adults. But giving the backstory, how Freddy Krueger is supposedly supposed to be a filthy child murderer who killed at least 20 kids or so or more. It's just interesting because due to the backstory, you really don't see much of it. Well, sort of, kind of. In the first one, you sort of kind of see it a little, but you really don't see more of it up until New Nightmare, when Freddy is after Dylan. That's when you see it more, where it gives up vibes even more. I know as they were actually filming the movie, one of the scenes, while they were actually filming for real, there was an actual real earthquake taking place at the time during filming. A lot of you don't know about that. Just a little insider tip for those who weren't 100% sure about that. Because one of the earthquake scenes in the movie, for example, there was an actual real earthquake taking place at the time during the actual filming of an actual earthquake scene that was actually really taking place for real. It's just a lot of people don't really know too much about that. And yes, it was actually the Northridge earthquake in California in 1994 in the wintertime, as I think when the earthquake actually occurred. It was really bad, that earthquake, from what I found out. Like most California earthquakes. Very violent, that earthquake was. So, now, also something else I'm going to talk about here really quick that I just wanted to mention. So there is a season of this podcast that I will have on here as content. It's just talking about it. Okay. It's a little odd to talk about because for a few key reasons, such as one of the reasons to where there is where I'm going to be on here doing this a whole season dedicated to living in a mobile home, like such as in a trailer park, which I do not live in a trailer park. I mean, I used to. Never again. That's for sure. So I'm also going to cover about, like living in a trailer, whether it's on land or in a trailer park, double or single wide. And yeah, so going to cover those type of things. Oh, I have plenty of stories about back from the trailer park days. That's for sure. I know you're thinking, you actually lived at one time in your life. You actually lived in a trailer park. Sure did. That's a true story. Well, prior to that, lived in other places that were a lot nicer than prior to that. I was in a trailer park, what, 3 times? 3 times. 3 different ones. But they're all the same, literally. Would I do it again? No, not at all. Mm-mm. Nope, I would never live in a trailer park ever again. Hell no. And I mean, for those who are, it's okay. I know what that's like. If you're not, it's okay. It's also okay to live in a trailer, whether it's in a park or whether it's on land. Hell, it's even okay if it's a single wide. It's also okay if it's a double wide. It doesn't matter. Also, do you know what? Also, you know what? If you're going through something, it don't matter. It's okay. You're still well loved. Lots of love. No judgment here. So, if you haven't figured this out by now, you could tell that I like horror films, right? Right. Now, believe it or not, now, back to things. I actually had seen every Nightmare on Elm Street movie throughout the Freddy Krueger series in the first place. From A Nightmare on Elm Street to Part 2, 3, Part 4, Part 5, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and Freddy vs. Jason. Like I said, I had seen all of them. And I also had seen the remake, the 2010 version of A Nightmare on Elm Street. It was okay, but it just wasn't the same as the original. That's for sure. I thought the original was better. Because it was the original, you know? Anyway. I just can't wait to see what the new version surprises us with on Paramount when the time comes. So that's all I can really say about that as of right now. Now, you should all know something else here. Now, you could also catch this podcast episode again Monday night, because it will be, you can also watch it Monday night as well if you want to, because that's when this will air, Monday night. Because that's when it's scheduled for. It's just those who are watching right now, you rock. Just know that. Now, like I have said though, this podcast is a one-man show. Me. Right here. Me. And it is also being recorded in real time. Oh yeah, something else I wanted to say. So, I liked in New Nightmare also where how everything had went down and even the ending. I really liked how they did hell of a job doing those nightmare hellish scenes throughout the movie. I just wanted to say that too. Now, like I said, those were great. I like how that was pulled off. I love how they did all the effects for the movie. Loved how they used all the clever lighting. I just liked how it was 10 years after the first film to where something was going after the real cast and crew of people who actually helped make the first film. I just think that's truly amazing. How the way they pulled it off and how there were real world scenarios that were really happening to the cast and crew on and off set. And yes, some of the cast and crew did at one point had to walk away to deal with some things that were really going on as well. Yeah, that was amazing too, by the way. Now, a lot of you may not know this, but I actually made a YouTube short horror film that's on YouTube to watch on my channel, Blast of Strangeness. It's actually called The Definitive Nightmare. It's just a little short horror film that I made, that I directed it. Yeah, my director name. That's also the same email address that's for the podcast to email the channel. And like I said, I'll read your email and we'll go from there. If you have any comments, questions, or anything you want to talk about, you can here on the podcast. Well, usually on this podcast, I'm usually not talking about horror film. I'm usually not talking about horror films. I'm usually talking about alien encounter, abductions, paranormal encounters, and paranormal experiences, things to that nature. Oh, and bad educated mentor / teacher figures is also usually what I usually talk about on the podcast. Oh, yes. And I also talk about mental health and mental illness related things also on the podcast, with mental health and medical conditions. Stuff like that is usually talked about on the podcast, but this podcast doesn't usually focus on one subject for different seasons. It changes from season to season. So just keep that in mind. If you're wondering, well, why does it change so much? It just does. It's just one of those things that's just how it goes here on this podcast. Like I said, this podcast talks about a lot of different things. Now, we will also get back into the mental illness and the mental health and the medical conditions, things of that nature. The podcast will get back into that in another season. So yes, I just want to say that too. There's some good water. So anyway, yeah, like I said, this podcast talks about the most random things. Also, just like I said, just watch the other episodes of the podcast. The other seasons are all available on YouTube. So far, there's season 1 and season 2. And this is, right now, we are in season 3, episode 27, by the way. So, yeah, there's a bunch of episodes you can get caught up on to watch. By the way, if you want to, you can. Like I said, I also have regular content on there too, as well. But, you know, this is just a live podcast that is filmed in real time as a one-man show that I do weekly. So it is real, but it's alive. Anyway, so now, also in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I really like the scene to where Heather was getting sent letters in the mail and what it actually spelled out. But yeah, that I thought was really cool, how that was done. I also did like, though, how Wes Craven's New Nightmare also did reference A Nightmare on Elm Street throughout the movie as well, with certain things. Like to where it had the English teacher from A Nightmare on Elm Street play one of the nurses at the hospital, and where Heather and Dylan are kind of watching A Nightmare on Elm Street a little bit. And how it even sang a song, as you all know. Mm-hmm. And I also like how it also shows John Saxon again, and how it also showed Heather and Robert Englund as Freddy again. Like I said, just the way how it referenced The Nightmare on Elm Street was pretty cool. And how at one point, the house in New Nightmare, instead of being the Tarzana house, it actually ends up becoming the 1420 Elm Street house in the movie. I really liked how it went right into that. How 1 minute it shows the regular Tarzana house in Tarzana, California, and then it shows the 1420 Elm Street house also in California or slash Los Angeles. Anywho, it's just great how it showed both houses within the movie. That I thought was pretty cool. And I just love how that movie breaks the fourth wall as meta horror in the 90s, which meta horror actually did. And I like how the movie had a good runtime. I also like how the movie starts and how it ends. I also like how in the ending there was a note written to Heather from Wes Craven where it says, "Heather, thank you for playing Nancy one last time. Freddy is back where he belongs. And best regards, Wes." I actually like how that was written in the movie script and where Heather finds the note towards the end of the movie and reads it. I also like how she didn't really know about the script of the film being hidden around the house until she reveals it and actually finds it. I like how the movie did that. I also love how Jessica Craven actually makes an appearance in this movie as one of the hospital nurses. And of course, I gotta mention this again. I love Heather's favorite line. Her favorite line, which we should know by now from A Nightmare on Elm Street. She said it, and she also said it again in New Nightmare. Her famous line of "screw your pass" made it into both movies. And I like how they use that reference from A Nightmare on Elm Street into New Nightmare. Yes, that was her famous iconic line in A Nightmare on Elm Street. I just wanted to say that too, really quick. Also, in New Nightmare, I liked how a lot of things were done in that movie, but I really liked how they filmed the earthquake scenes all quickly, and it must have took them quite a long time to film it, but they got it just right, if you ask me. I also like how just the whole atmosphere of the whole movie overall took place. That's amazing. And just the whole movie in general. And the best part was they got to film in California. Now, I don't know if the actual house in Tarzana actually has a pool in the yard. It had a pool in the yard in the movie, but I don't know if the real house does or not. That I don't know. I have no clue if that does or not. But I'm not 100% sure. If anyone knows, just email that into the podcast and we'll go from there. Even if you're the person actually watching this right now who lives in the house that we used in the movie, is there really a pool in the yard or not? Like in the movie. That's what I would love to know. If there is or if there isn't. I think there is, but I don't know for sure. Either way. Well, I'd hate to do this, but we are out of time. We are out of time. And, I will see you all in next week's episode of the podcast. You're just, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're going through, it's okay. You're well loved. Lots of love. God bless you all. And I will see you all in the next episode for the podcast. Bye.